Hi, it's Jason Gorber from ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about Kogonada's After Yang, one of the breakout films here at Cannes 2021.
ThatShelf.
So you're going to get all kinds of different films here at Cannes. You get the sort of major in competition things, you get the stuff at the sidebar, the Uncertain Regard, you get the Director's Fortnight stuff. There's all these different films playing from all over the world that do some pretty remarkable stuff sometimes. But I saw a film yesterday that just kicked my butt. I loved it. And I loved it in ways which for me are relatively interesting, because sort of on paper it might not necessarily have worked. I'm not a huge fan of films that are so achingly slow that they sort of become sort of a challenge to get through. I know that some people just adore just being sort of, you know, in that zone, in that sort of sleepy dream zone where you just kind of feel that the film's sort of floating all over you. Sometimes I love that, sometimes I don't. 2001 I love it, other times I definitely do not. But Kogonada's previous film, Columbus, which I saw at Sundance, seems forever ago, just beautifully set that stage. Yeah, it's a film about wandering and relationships and a town and all that stuff, and yet somehow it sort of exquisitely managed to maintain that tone throughout. After Yang is ostensibly one of these sort of like neo-future kind of films. Think something like Ex Machina, not quite like the Blade Runner sort of near-future stuff, but something that's just a little bit more advanced than what we have now. It's the story of an android. It's again, AI is another obvious sort of connective tissue to this kind of filmmaking. That you have Yang, who is a sort of is brought in by a family to teach their adopted child about Chinese culture. It's this really interesting sort of rumination on what's happening, especially under the one-child policy of China, where generations, frankly, of young Chinese children were sent out to adoptees, primarily Western. Nonetheless, the film has this beautiful, like Blade Runner, this beautiful collision between Japanese culture and other different things, but this sort of drawing from African influences, obviously British influences. Colin Ferrell is sort of the biggest quote-unquote name in the film, but all coming together in this story that's really fundamentally about, you know, as something as sort of superficial and obvious as, you know, memory and loss. That joke that we always say, well, you know, the film about memory loss, you mean every film ever. But this really is about that. This really is about how we remember, how we build families, and all of these different things that, again, on paper seem just absolutely quotidian, just absolutely superficial and banal. And yet, under the poetic lens of Kogonada, we just have something that's truly stellar, truly stunning, and truly remarkable. I'm a huge fan of films that don't falter, if that makes any sense. You get jaded, especially during festivals, when you see tons of films sort of clatter with one another, that you're sort of expecting, half waiting for the film to flounder at some point in time. And every moment in this film where I thought it was going to get too big or too obvious or too overt, that this is where it was going to go, that this is going to be how you're going to actually create tension and drama, the film just recedes from that. And it actually just becomes much more interesting in its way. It's the ability to do something that all the characters are doing stuff that makes sense, that the lies they tell and the truths they tell absolutely are in keeping, that there's no sort of overt sort of explosion that needs to take place in order for you to be captivated. And that is what truly makes this film, for me, absolutely remarkable. There are no moments where like the conspiracy sort of blows so far out that it just becomes some sort of like hunter thriller. No, all of that stuff is deflated. All these moments where you think that, oh, there's this underlying stuff that's going to take place. Well, no, it's just, this is sort of how it plays out. We're left with all kinds of questions that aren't answered, but those are not the interesting questions. The question is like, how does a family sort of come back together after a loss? And we see how. It's really, really a beautiful film. I really encourage people to see it sort of as blind as you can be to its charms. It's not going to be for everyone. I know that. Frankly, this kind of film is not normally for me. And yet this is such a beautiful, wonderful, spectacular version of this kind of movie. This sort of quiet, contemplative, beautiful, artistic film that's allowed to have the space to shine, that allows the characters to interact, that allows the moments of quiet and conversation to truly feel engaging and real without feeling that you're there just to bore or to generate some sort of, false sense of normalcy or obviousness or everydayness. It just feels right. It feels heightened when it needs to be heightened, and absolutely grounded when it needs to be grounded. Tonally, it is perfect. And that's why I'm so excited about After Yang. So for thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thanks so much for watching. We got plenty more here from the festival for you to enjoy. Please subscribe, follow us on social media. Let us know what you think about the film when you finally get a chance to see it, and we'll see you next time. All the best.